This is Regained Wellness Podcast with Jamie Logie, episode 1.21 gigawatts. Does the alkaline diet make you healthier?
88 miles per hour!
Hey guys, what's happening? Welcome back to the podcast. I'm Jamie Logie. I run regainedwellness.com, and this is the Regained Wellness Podcast, episode 121 or 1.21 gigawatts. If you're remotely a fan of Back to the Future, which I am, very much so. So today's episode is about the alkaline diet, which you may or may not be aware of it because it's not a diet per se, but it's the idea of eating foods that promote more of an alkaline environment in your body compared to an acidic environment, and the differences between those two things, how they make you healthier or less healthy, how you can kind of incorporate those sort of foods. Just it's a little more education just on the whole issue, because like I said, it's not a specific diet that you follow. It's just more of the approach and the lifestyle and how your body works specifically with these foods. And I'll give you the whole rundown on the whole issue. But before we get into that, if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe. Basically wherever you get your podcasts, whether it's iTunes or Stitcher Radio or Google Play Music, all those things, I should be there. That way you get the shows automatically sent to you each week. And then I don't have to mail them or hand deliver them. They just automatically appear. And this weekend was Adam West, the original Batman, passed away, which is kind of sad. So I thought, as I usually do, transitioning into the different parts of the show, we'll use Batman to get us there. So with the alkaline diet, again, this is the wrong term. There's just not a better way to say it, because when you say the word diet, it sort of implies something negative, as it kind of alludes to a restriction or denying yourself. Like when you think diet, you got to cut stuff out. You got to avoid it. Whatever. The right approach, like I was mentioning, is more of a healthy eating lifestyle, whether that's a Mediterranean diet or eating paleo or vegan or vegetarian. It's not a diet per se. It's just how your life is sort of focused on this diet. The whole lifestyle is encompassed. So when I say alkaline diet, it's just an easier way to kind of sum up the whole thing, because a healthy eating lifestyle is more about including as much beneficial nutrition as possible. And that's basically what the alkaline diet is. So it can go pretty deep science-wise, but I'm going to keep it pretty simple as far as the definition of it is: consuming foods that put your body in more of an alkaline state as opposed to an acidic state. When you're in an acidic state, it's when your body can really be made vulnerable to illnesses, diseases. It's just when you're in this acidic state, your body is just kind of, it's like its defenses are down. It's more prone to a lot of issues that doesn't happen when you're in an alkaline state. So we measure, this is, if you remember back to school, whether it was high school biology or chemistry, or if you did it in public school, we measure whether something is acidic or alkaline on the pH scale, if you remember that. And the pH scale goes like this: from 0 to 7, it's considered acidic. 7 is considered neutral, and 7 to 4 is alkaline. And that's the idea. Basically, foods are either acidic or they're alkaline. There's no in between. The only thing that's neutral is water. Everything else can have a different effect on your body. So, I mean, if it's been a while and you don't remember those, ratios and all that stuff, that's easily forgiven, because that was a while ago. Even if you're wearing acid wash jeans in high school and you remember that, that's a whole different issue. But with the alkaline diet, and the people that really support it say that when you replace the acidic foods with alkaline type foods, you really start to drastically improve your health. So the first step is eliminating those foods that can be seen as causing an acidic state in the body. And not surprisingly, on that list are going to be the things like that are on all lists to avoid. So refined grains, sugars, processed foods, alcohol. Also on that list, though, are various forms of things that can be beneficial if you get a cleaner version of them. So things that are potentially acidic causing foods in the body would be like meat, poultry, fish, wheat, eggs, dairy's right up there as well too. The issue with these might be the sources of them though. So like if you look at something like dairy, if we consume dairy from just say regular store-bought milk, it's not really a natural substance at that point. Like if you're drinking a 1% milk or 2% milk, these are kind of like hydro-infused milks that we adapt. Like this isn't milk in its natural state. Like if you were to offer a baby cow 2% milk, it's not going to touch it just because it's not really milk. And if your milk's coming from, like I said, a supermarket, there's a good chance it's from a factory feedlot, confinement lot cow that tends to be so pumped full of hormones. They're not eating a natural diet. They're eating a high energy grain diet. They're not moving. They're not active. They're not allowed to roam. They're not allowed to be natural how they're supposed to. The other issue is with the milk and the dairy is the pasteurization issue, which is good because, it kills off a lot of bacteria, but it also kills the good bacteria that's beneficial to us in milk. So what happens, they use I'm not sure the old technique. It's like a cold kind of like, not laser, but like a cold infrared or X-ray type thing, whatever that basically breaks down, the bacteria and pasteurizes it. So with the good bacteria, what happens though is this process basically breaks open the bacteria and it essentially spills its guts into the milk, and it creates what they call cytotoxins. And these cytotoxins have a kind of inflammatory response in the body. They cause like a histamine response, like the same way you would when you have allergies or hay fever, and it creates, uncomfortableness like bloating, mucus, anything that you like, basically if you had hay fever. That's why they say allergies might not actually exist. It's more that our bodies get in the state because of some of these foods we eat that create this histamine response that we sometimes associate maybe with, pollen or grasses. So it might not necessarily be that, or they're working in kind of conjunction together. So it's one of the, say with the dairy issue, anyone who's like a singer or performer or opera singers, they're known to always avoid dairy because it makes them very phlegmy and very mucousy because of that histamine response. And I can see that causing, that acidic state in the body. So it might not be because of these foods in their real whole form. It's maybe more because they've been so like corrupted and altered over the years, and we've sort of created. It's the same thing with meat. Like if you're looking at, we're talking about those confinement feedlot based animals where they're not active, they're not roaming and grazing and eating grass. They're fed on the very best of days just straight grain, but it gets way worse from there as far as, potentially like genetically modified type grains, other fillers and feeds that are high energy to get these animals bigger and fatter and quicker. And that's the problem with cows, is they're not meant to consume grains, even like corn or even if it's straight organic, clean as a whistle, grain or corn or cereals or whatever, because their bodies are meant to eat grass. They have what they call like a bacterial fermentation system. It's why they have 4 stomachs. The animals like that are ruminants, where they have to eat grass because they break down every like ounce of nutrition out of the grass they eat. They actually like convert it into fatty acids, and their bodies run off those fatty acids. So it's why they have to have the 4 different stomachs, because it's so processed and so broken down. When you give animals like that grains and high energy foods, it's super rich in their body, and it turns their bodies into more of an acidic state. It bumps up the omega-6 levels in their body compared to the omega-3s. And if you're familiar with that, you want this balance to be almost like kind of a one-to-one thing. But in us and in animals, because we're eating, too many refined carbohydrates and sugars and whatever, our ratio of omega-6 to 3 is like 20-to-1, upwards of 40-to-1, completely out of balance. So when that omega-6 ratio in the body is so high, it's causing huge inflammation. And that's the issue with the cows that are eating these grain diets, that they are now inflamed themselves, they're acidic, and then we eat those animals or we drink that milk. And then that potentially can be happening in us. So when people add these things into a list of acidic foods, it might be more just not the original sources that are causing these. So you can still be getting good, depending on the country you live in. Like where I live in Canada, we have, like here in southwestern Ontario, the meats and dairy we have access to is a little cleaner than other places compared to a lot of places in the, say in the States. So that's the one advantage we have, even if we're getting, say, beef at a like grocery store or Walmart or whatever, it's usually a better quality because they tend to, every country has their different standards. And like say here in Canada is really high. England has really usually pretty high standards for some of their beef, for countries like New Zealand or whatever. So that's just a side rant on the whole issue. But those are some of the things that are chalked up as acidic foods. So what are some of the alkaline foods that you want to include to, keep your body as healthy as possible? So it's going to be pretty much most fruits, vegetables, like non-starchy vegetables. The darker green the color, usually the better. Things like soybeans and tofu are on there, nuts and seeds, legumes. They all help keep your body in that alkaline state. But what you're looking at here are real whole foods, and that can fit mostly, or they can fit into a mostly vegetarian lifestyle too. So people who, even vegans can accommodate a lot of the foods that make up an alkaline diet, not including the dairy. So ideally you want to go for the best stuff you can find, specifically local and organic. Organic doesn't always mean that it's higher nutrition. It means it's grown without pesticides. You're avoiding a lot of these toxins and crap that can cause a lot of problems in the body. And, a lot of times it is more nutritious, but that's not always the case. So some of these things, like, you can easily grow yourself, like things like tomatoes, peppers, garlic, onions. They're so easy to grow in your backyard. They don't even take that much attention. Even like fresh herbs like basil, thyme, rosemary, they almost grow themselves. So they're pretty easy thing to do. So with the alkaline diet, then, if you wonder if it's for everyone, I'd say, like, ideally you want to keep your body in an alkaline state, and your blood is always at that state, being around about a 7.34 to a 7.45 on the pH scale. So the difference is, like, your body's working in sort of different levels all the time. Like your stomach, for example, is highly acidic. It's around 2 to a 3.5. So remember, anything under 7 is acidic. But this is critical, though, as the hydrochloric acid in the stomach needs to be that way to break down food. That's the difference. We're talking about the cows or ruminants that have a bacterial fermentation system to break down all those, grasses and natural things like that. We have the hydrochloric acid system, which breaks down tougher things like peptides and fatty acids and all sorts of stuff. And it's the reason we don't have to be eating all day long. Like a cow has to spend all of its day grazing and eating, where we don't necessarily have to do that. So the problem that arises when you're testing and having a look at the pH scales in your body is that your urine pH and your blood pH can be different. And you've seen those little tabs, where you can dip and then you get an idea of your pH scale. So this is a problem. A urine pH reading does not indicate the same thing in the blood. So that can throw a lot of things off. The urine measurement may be high, but that doesn't give a good indicator of body pH and your overall health. So that's where this gets a little kind of muddled, is there's really nothing you can do to change your blood pH as your body's going to regulate it itself. Like I said, your stomach is super acidic and the rest of your body functions in a different way. So if you might be using one of these pH little tab things, you're not getting an ideal sort of snapshot of what's going on in your body. Another issue is the possibility of being deficient in other nutrients when you cut out quite a wide variety of foods. So when people go straight alkaline based foods, they cut out a lot of those things like I'd mentioned. And then they're missing out on that full range of nutrition. So even if you are full on carnivore, your diet still needs to be plant based. You're wanting on a daily basis to include many of those alkaline foods every day, regardless, whether you want to eat bacon and eggs and steak all day long, like you still have to have plant based for the majority of where your good nutrition comes from. So on a single day, you should be aiming for double-digit servings of non-starchy vegetables each day. Like I said, the darker green leafy varieties, that's your better option. But like the whole spectrum, like eat all the different colors that you can. But the darker the green, the more phytonutrient content it has, the more minerals, vitamins, antioxidants. So that's your best bet. So the foods listed as alkaline are good for you, so they should be included daily. And if you do consume animal proteins, you want to look, like I said, for the cleanest sources possible, so you're not eating a lot of the toxins and crap that come along with them. So ideally getting grass-fed animals is really good, that are free from hormones, or chickens that are free range. Same thing with the eggs, that they're not eating hormone filled feeds, or they're treated hormonally and all that sort of thing. So I mean, that's what we're looking at with the alkaline diet. It's something that we should be following anyway. So I'd say one of the main things that the alkaline diet is based around is not just about what it includes, but it's what it does not include. It's eliminating or removing all those things that you'd want to be removing anyway. There's no processed garbage or refined carbohydrates or junk snack foods. There isn't fast food. There isn't alcohol. There isn't trans fats. There isn't artificial sweeteners or high fructose corn syrups. It's focused on real whole foods that are nutrient dense and natural. So as far as if it is a diet or if it is good, it is really good because of what it promotes. It's promoting real whole foods, and it's telling you, even though it says, don't consume dairy or eggs, if you find those things in their natural, cleanest state, that changes the conversation a little bit. So if you're talking about avoiding beef, and it's, a fast food burger that is, made up of potentially 100 different animals, that is completely antibiotic filled, trans fat filled, hormone pumped from animals that are basically sick. Yeah, 100% you should be avoiding that. But if it's, if you can get beef from local farms where where they're raised, that they're allowed to roam naturally, to eat a natural diet, there's no hormones, they're not even eating grains and corn and stuff like that, they're allowed to graze and be truly grass fed, that's a whole different situation. With all those, with all this crap I said that's not in it to start with, when you start eliminating those things is when you start seeing, some improvements in your health, and big improvements. Like say just cutting out, say you drink a ton of soda, just cutting, pop if you live in Canada, soda in the States, soft drinks or whatever. Say you drink Coke every day, just cutting that out, the change that can do is it can almost be night and day. But when you start removing all those other things that don't exist as real foods or don't exist in nature, that's when you start seeing, health transformations. When you make a point to include things off of that list of alkaline foods, like the non-starchy vegetables and legumes and all that sort of thing, nuts and seeds, throwing in, like olive oil or avocados, coconut oil, all that stuff. You make it easier for your body to run optimally and for you to feel your best. So then when you start combining that with, this is like what I'm trying to say is like when you look at something that's promoted, this alkaline diet, don't look at it as a diet, look at it as the lifestyle and the promotion of those real clean superfoods that when you mix with, like, say, good exercise and getting in adequate water through the day, getting quality sleep, reducing stress as best as you can, and that that kind of goes hand in hand with the exercise and the sleep. When you do those things, it really reduces and eliminates stress. So that's when you start getting yourself on the road to true wellness. It's not diet is I mean, you hear percentages like it's 80% of your results or it's 70%, and it's definitely the most important thing for your results, but it does work hand in hand with all those other things. At the very least, if you're having trouble getting started with, like, say, exercise or whatever, if you at least get your diet under control, that's 2/3 of you getting the way there. That's promoting the cleanliness and the health in your body. And then when you start adding in, exercise here or there, and when you improve the quality of your sleep, or if you start going to bed earlier, that's when everything starts really kind of humming together like a well-oiled machine, and each thing sort of enhances the other. Like, say, with the example of getting quality sleep, they call sleep a force multiplier, and that means it accentuates whatever state you're in. So in the case of if your diet is really poor and you're not getting a lot of exercise and you don't get a lot of sleep, it makes those first things even worse health-wise. The lack of sleep just kind of accelerates good or bad whatever's happening in your body. So when you are eating really well, you're exercising, you're drinking a ton of water, you're cutting out a lot of those other things. And then when you get good sleep, it makes those things like the exercise, the health and the diet, it makes those enhance through the roof. So that's why I say by sleep being a force multiplier, it has this effect on improving or continuing to make worse whatever kind of condition you're at the moment. So you want to make sure those are all in place, but once they are, they kind of have that like spillover effect and feed off each other. So that's basically it. It's just, like I said, it's not that complicated a thing looking at this whole alkaline acidic issue. Avoid things that are acidic and build up more of those alkaline based things, and then just kind of putting them all together into this combination. So it's not that it is a diet, it's just a healthy lifestyle approach. So hopefully that sums it up. Like I said, it can go a lot deeper with the science, but that's kind of like the overall picture of it. So hopefully that gives you a little insight and encourages you to add in more of those cleaner foods, push away that crap if it's been making up part of your diet. So I'll cut it off there. Appreciate you listening. Like I said, make sure you subscribe. If you want to see the show notes for this, it's regainedwellness.com/121. And that's just where I, like sort of sum up the things, and, I'll put some references in that I talked about in here. And if you haven't already as well, like if you're at the website, you can make sure to sign up for the email newsletter. If you want to get a email from me, it's basically every couple of weeks. So it covers different relevant health topics, or I'll pass on information, things that I basically just share over email. So if that's something you want, you can get that by signing up at regainedwellness.com/guide. And when you do sign up, it sends you off a free ebook too, which talks more about like stuff I was talking here today, things you want to include in specific foods, more reasons behind why you want to avoid the things I mentioned to avoid. It's got some recipes. Yeah, pretty good. So that's regainedwellness.com/guide. So thank you for listening, and let's have Batman take us out.